from downtown too. He shot
fast.
so far out.
Once he gets a hold of you, it's so dangerous.
He just needs to get his paws.
Okay, here we
on
go.
you.
Here we go. Right here. Right. See, it's around the mouth.
That's around
He
the mouth.
tapped
That's around
quick.
the jaw.
That was
around the
weird.
That's around the jaw.
Real deal.
He might be the guy, dude.
He might be that guy. And this is the best time to be a fan. When the
And
guy's coming up, there's
hasn't
nothing
lost.
better.
He
And
hasn't
here,
lost.
think about this: 85, right? So this guy was killing himself to get to 70. At 85, he's the fucking man.
My God.
The guy at welterweight, is he going to be the guy to dethrone Kamaru Usman?
I think he's the scariest contender we have seen for a while. And look, the odds of the whole buddy thing with Darren Till, I think it's a mistake. I think he should continue to be a mystery to people. I think he should spend as little time in front of the public and showing who he is, pulling the curtain back. I would pull the curtain back as little as I could if I'm Khamzat, just because the mystery is good for him. But yes, he's very scary. To say anyone will knock off Kamaru Usman is he's the most scary contender we've had for a while because there are just so many unknowns. Like, you know, when I was a kid and I would watch The Undertaking from Parts Unknown or Death Valley. Mankind was from Parts Unknown. I'm like, where's this dude from? Even though I knew he was Cactus Jack. I knew he was Cactus Jack. I knew underneath it all it was Cactus Jack. But it was like, what is this? Like, it's like Khamzat. There's just so many questions. And every time he comes in, he dominates, he's gone. Now,
Khamzat Chimaev didn't enter the UFC like a prospect who needs time to adjust. He crashed through the door, flipped the furniture, and vanished before anyone could diagram what just happened. That's why the legends keep using loaded words. Daniel Cormier calls him the scariest contender in years because mystery is a weapon when a fighter drowns you in pressure and then disappears until the next ambush. Joe Rogan talks about that long-range shot that somehow finds your hips and a squeeze that makes world-class athletes look ordinary. Brendan Schaub retells the training room hush, the way even tough rooms go quiet when the wrong man starts warming up. Put those voices together and you get the same picture every time: inevitability. Strip the myth away and the resume still shocks. Chimaev is unbeaten as a professional at 14-0, with a finish rate that refuses to give opponents a safe choice. If you turn your back, he chokes. If you plant your feet, he cracks. If you hesitate, he changes levels and the canvas starts to tilt. That spotless line matters because it isn't theoretical. It is a list of nights where game plans got shredded, and it's the reason veterans talk about him like a problem rather than a person. He has been perfect so far, and he has been mean about it. ESPN.com. Look at Abu Dhabi for the clearest example. Robert Whittaker is the kind of veteran who solves chaos with footwork and timing, but he barely had time to map the entries. Chimaev stepped through, tangled the legs, and finished with a face crank in the first round. It wasn't just that he won. It was how little oxygen he allowed Whittaker to find. The message was cruel and simple. Even elite structure can collapse when the clamp lands in the right place. That night hardened the boogeyman idea into a receipt the whole division could read: MMA fighting. A year before that, Kamaru Usman took a short-notice risk and forced the kind of test every rising force needs. Round 1 was all gravity, top control, rides, and a pace that made the canvas feel smaller. Then Usman steadied, found his timing, and clawed back late. The scorecards called it a majority decision for Chimaev, a reminder that he can bank dominance early, but still has to answer questions when a great fighter refuses to fold. That memory lingers over any cardio debate and gives Dricus du Plessis a blueprint for resistance. ESPN.com. All of that funnels us to Chicago. The United Center lights up, the middleweight belt sits on the table, and UFC 319 becomes the night when Aura meets a champion who delights in wrecking scripts. Dates and venues don't win fights, but they do define eras, and this card has that feeling, a chapter marker everyone will point to later. It is du Plessis, the king of awkward rhythms and stubborn scrambles, versus Chimaev, the architect of suffocating order. With the cage closed, we finally find out whether myth stays magic or turns into math. UFC, why does du Plessis bother? Analysts who pick against him and then apologize the next morning? Because he corrupts pacing. He throws on the half-beat, marches through neat striking lines, and drags opponents into clinch clocks they didn't plan to punch. He turns clean exchanges into collisions and invites you to spend energy proving he isn't supposed to be there. Chimaev creates the opposite problem. He moves like a riptide, setting grips where there shouldn't be grips, steering you toward the fence and welding his weight to your choices. When those currents smash into each other, the first scramble might tell the future. The legends translate this into physics. Cormier talks about torque on the hips and shoulder pressure that eats breath. Rogan zeroes in on that downtown shot, an entry that starts outside normal range and still arrives locked. Shob adds the human layer, strong wrestlers who suddenly feel light, big men who look up at the rafters and wonder how they got there. That chorus doesn't guarantee victory, but it sets a floor. If Chimaev gets a certain touch on the entry, the problem often solves itself before you can recalibrate. The rhythm of his career sharpened the myth. There were pauses, illness, canceled dates, the bounce between welterweight and middleweight, and every gap turned into fog that made the next impact feel larger. He would go quiet, then return with a body slam performance that erased the questions. Cormier once argued that this mystery is part of the weapon, and it's hard to disagree. Unknowns make opponents hesitate, and hesitation is what pressure fighters hunt. The doubts are real, and they keep the night honest. After the wild war with Gilbert Burns and the late push from Usman, skeptics circled the cardio line on the scouting report. Rumors suggest the team answered by stacking long sparring blocks, drilling throttle control, and prioritizing boring, bankable minutes over reckless hunts. Reports claim the room saw a shift toward patience, less chasing, more trapping. But gym stories are only useful until the first counterpunch lands. The only laboratory that matters is championship time, and Duplessis is built to drag people there. His game is designed to scuff your blueprint. He will sprawl and bounce, he will make you shoot from farther and farther away, and he will turn exits into resets over and over until the clock becomes an opponent. If Chimaev builds a lead with rides, mat returns, and knees by the fence, the fight will feel like gravity. If Dreykus keeps slashing through positions and never lets the clamps stack, the pace flips. Endurance is a series of decisions under fire, and the champion excels at forcing ugly ones. The psychological angle is its own scorecard. Some fighters are beaten by the idea of their opponent long before first contact. Having Cormier and Rogan describe you like a storm front can move the needle before the walk, and you could hear that in the pressers this week. But Duplessis carries a different energy. He seems to enjoy being told what he can't do. The odds makers still lean toward Chimaev, and the betting slips love a submission, yet the belt cares only about the minutes you actually win. Reuters. Maybe that's why the build-up felt sharper than usual. Beyond the clips and the hot mic lines, you could hear veterans choosing their words carefully, like they knew this wasn't just another defense or another challenger, it was a referendum. Even the promotional moments added heat, including that viral whisper from Chimaev, promising the belt would change hands in 2 days, the kind of line that hardens positions on both sides. Those are theater, sure, but they also tell you how confidently a fighter is moving into the fire. MMAmania.com. One more factor sits under the surface. He looks at home at 185. The cut to 170 always felt like a tax. At middleweight, he carries size without strain, and the entries land clean instead of labored. Rogan's take has been clear. This is the weight he was meant to live at, and the tape backs it. The shots start faster, the rides last longer, and the risk-reward math tilts harder in his favor when the body is full over 5 hard rounds. When the door shuts, the myth becomes data. If he blitzes, Dreykus will try to meet him with high frames and knees up the middle. If he chains takedowns, Dreykus will build to his feet instead of reaching for long submissions that stall and give away positions. Little choices flip big outcomes. A trapped wrist becomes a mat return. A lazy underhook becomes a back take. An exit with your feet too close to the fence becomes a ride you can't shake. Legends focus on Chimaev's details because he manufactures those moments over and over with cruel efficiency. And yet, the most compelling version of this fight might be the one that goes long. If we hit the championship rounds, we learn whether the quiet work turned into real lungs, whether the swagger survives fatigue, and whether the aura holds when the body wants to fold. That's the test du Plessis seems to crave. Drag the boogeyman into the fourth, force him to think, and see if the mystery still scares anyone when both men are tired. If Chimaev is truly that guy, the late minutes will look methodical, not desperate. If he isn't, the tide will flip, and the crowd will feel it. By the end, one story ends and another begins. Either the division wakes up to a new ruler and a fresh set of nightmares, or the champion forces everyone to admit that sometimes the unknown is just another man who bleeds like the rest. The legends will talk either way, but they won't have to guess anymore. They'll point to what happened in Chicago and say, that is exactly how good he really is, and that is exactly how hard it is to stop a man who believes every second is his.